Now, while we can't control what the U.S. does, we can decide what happens here. This is Canada, and we can build the future we want for ourselves. We can get that money back and more.
Canada just delivered its strongest reply yet to Donald Trump's aggressive tariff regime. Prime Minister Mark Carney has unveiled Budget 2025, a sweeping trillion-dollar national investment strategy that he says will take back control of Canada's future, rebuild the country's industrial core, and recover the economic damage caused by U.S. protectionism. And this time, the message is unmistakable. Canada is not waiting for Washington. Canada is acting for itself. At a moment when U.S. tariffs are reshaping North American trade, when global alliances are fracturing, and when economic uncertainty hangs over the country, Carney's budget is more than a policy document. It is a declaration of national resolve. It marks the beginning of a new economic direction designed to protect Canada from external shocks and give the country room to chart its own path. Today, we take you through what happened, why it matters, and how this moment may permanently reshape Canada's economic destiny.
Mark Carney stepped onto the stage in Ottawa with members of his caucus, including newly joined MP Chris D'Entremont, and immediately framed Canada's current moment in historic terms. Nations, he reminded the audience, face rare hinge moments when the future hangs in the balance and when leadership determines whether a country rises or stagnates. For Canada, he argued, that hinge moment is now. Rapid technological disruption is redefining entire industries. The world is becoming more volatile and divided, and the global trading system, one Canada has relied on for decades, is being rewired in real time. Carney delivered the number that set the tone. U.S. tariffs and the uncertainty created by Trump's protectionist policies are expected to cost Canada nearly 2% of its GDP. That translates to roughly $50 billion, about $1,300 taken out of the Canadian economy for every person in the country. He made it clear that while Canada cannot control what the United States does, it can control its response, and that response would be nothing short of transformational. The centerpiece of his announcement is an unprecedented plan to unleash more than $1 trillion in total investment over the next 5 years. This investment wave will target national infrastructure, energy development, housing construction, transportation networks, healthcare modernization, and the transition to low-carbon manufacturing. The government expects this push to increase national GDP by at least 3.5%. In Carney's own words, that's equivalent to more than $3,500 gained for every Canadian, far more than what U.S. tariffs have taken away. From the proposed high-speed rail line between Toronto and Quebec City to a $50 billion Build Communities Strong Fund to the modernization of outdated hospitals built in the 1970s, Carney's plan is not incremental change. It is a generational rebuild. He framed it plainly: fortune favors the bold, and this is the moment for Canada to act boldly.
It's estimated that U.S. tariffs and the uncertainty that they're creating will cost us around 1.8% of our GDP. Let me translate that. That's about $50 billion lost from our economy, or the equivalent of $1,300 for every Canadian.
Budget 2025 cannot be understood without the broader context of Trump's tariff escalation. During his second term, Donald Trump has expanded tariffs across nearly every major sector: autos, metals, chemicals, agriculture, consumer goods, and advanced manufacturing inputs. For decades, Canada benefited from the stability of the North American trading system, but under Trump 2.0, that stability no longer exists. Corporations are shifting production to the U.S. to avoid penalties. Investment decisions are being delayed or canceled, and long-standing supply chains are under constant political pressure. Canada has already felt the fallout. Stellantis moved Jeep Compass production from Ontario to Illinois. GM scaled back electric van production in Ingersoll. Multiple exporters are facing higher costs and shrinking margins. Carney's government understands the new reality. The U.S. is not going to return to predictable cooperative trade policy anytime soon. The old assumptions about continental integration no longer hold. Budget 2025 is Canada's structural answer to that reality.
Rather than meet American tariffs with retaliation, Carney is executing a very different strategy. He is treating U.S. economic pressure as a catalyst to supercharge domestic investment. His formula is simple and aggressive. If the U.S. takes $50 billion of economic output away through tariffs and uncertainty, then Canada should generate hundreds of billions in new value through nation-building projects. In other words, instead of fighting tariff with tariff, Carney is fighting tariff with growth. The budget's investments are designed to reshape Canada's industrial base from the ground up. Modern transit systems, expanded energy grids, advanced factories using Canadian steel and Canadian lumber, digital public services built on AI, and millions of new homes built with faster methods and cleaner materials. It is an approach rooted in economic sovereignty. It asserts that the most effective response to U.S. protectionism is not escalation, but independence. The domestic political implications are enormous. For Carney, Budget 2025 is not just an economic plan, it is a defining statement about what kind of country Canada wants to be in an era of global instability. His contrast with the Conservative opposition is sharp. While Conservatives emphasize spending cuts and deficit reduction, Carney is arguing that underinvestment poses a greater threat to the country's long-term stability than higher short-term spending. His message appeals directly to Canadians who feel squeezed by inflation, housing shortages, and slowing economic growth. Carney's repeated line, "We choose Canada," is crafted to tap into a broader sentiment. He is positioning himself as the leader willing to move beyond the old model of relying on U.S. markets and instead build a more self-sufficient, more resilient national economy. It is bold, it is risky, and it signals the clearest break yet between Ottawa and Washington's economic philosophies.
In the United States, Trump's advisors will see Budget 2025 as a strategic threat. Over the last year, the Trump administration has tried to use tariffs to force production, jobs, and investment into American territory. Carney's trillion-dollar blueprint undermines that logic. If Canada succeeds in modernizing its infrastructure, diversifying its trade partners, and building a stronger domestic manufacturing ecosystem, then Washington's ability to pressure Ottawa will decline sharply. Carney is essentially flipping the script. Instead of being squeezed by U.S. policy, Canada may come out stronger, more globally competitive, and less vulnerable to American leverage. That is the opposite of what Trump's team wants, and it will undoubtedly shape U.S. policymaking in the months ahead.
Budget 2025 is one of the most ambitious economic undertakings in modern Canadian history. It treats U.S. tariffs not as a crisis to endure, but as a spark for renewal. It is built on the belief that Canada can outperform the forces working against it, grow faster than expected, and redefine its place in a rapidly changing world. Yet the question remains, will Canadians embrace this scale of ambition? And how will Washington respond if Canada begins to rise as a more independent economic power? The answers will determine whether Budget 2025 becomes a turning point that reshapes Canada's future or merely the opening move in a much larger confrontation between Ottawa and Washington. Either way, the stakes have never been higher, and the world is watching.
McIlvenna Bay copper mine is under construction in east-central Saskatchewan, and it was one of the projects billed by the Prime Minister, Mr. Carney.
It will be Saskatchewan's first copper mine in 30 years and is set to start production next year. Once operational, the mine could produce up to 4,900 tons of copper, zinc, gold, and silver each day over an 18-year lifespan.
Across the quiet plains of Saskatchewan, the sound of drilling has become a new national rhythm. Beneath the flat horizon, Canada is building something far greater than a mine. It's building independence. While Washington's tariff walls grow taller, Saskatchewan is digging deeper. President Trump thought higher import duties would force Canada to yield. Instead, they awakened a new wave of investment, pride, and purpose. The McIlvenna Bay copper mine, once just a blueprint on a northern map, is now a billion-dollar symbol of resilience. In the middle of a trade war, Canada has found its power buried in rock.
The McIlvenna Bay project, near Creighton in east-central Saskatchewan, is the province's first new copper mine in 3 decades. Construction is 60% complete, backed by more than 1.18 billion Canadian dollars in combined private and public investment. Once production begins in mid-2026, it will support 800 construction jobs and about 450 permanent positions. Ottawa has placed the mine on its list of 5 nation-building projects and assigned it to the new Major Projects Office in Calgary to fast-track completion. Saskatchewan's government added a $70 million investment tax credit, tied the site to the Island Falls Hydro Network, and required an underground battery electric vehicle fleet to cut emissions. What makes this story stand out is the timing. While U.S. tariffs disrupted North America's auto and steel industries, Saskatchewan quietly rewrote the playbook. Instead of demanding bailouts or retaliating, it built something that could last for generations. The McIlvenna Bay project now anchors a broader critical minerals corridor stretching across Canada's prairies, from lithium brines in the south to rare earth processing in the north. Every kilometer of that network reduces Canada's dependence on U.S. supply chains and deepens its leverage in future negotiations.
Copper has quietly become the backbone of the modern economy. It carries electricity through every car, phone, and data center. The International Energy Agency predicts that global demand could quadruple by 2040 as electric vehicles, defense systems, and artificial intelligence servers expand. Yet Canada's copper output has fallen about 25% over the past decade, according to Natural Resources Canada. That decline exposed a vulnerability just as Trump's trade war intensified. By placing McIlvenna Bay among its top national priorities, Ottawa has made copper a centerpiece of its economic sovereignty strategy. Federal programs like the Strategic Innovation Fund and Canada Growth Fund are not just subsidies, they are part of a deliberate industrial rebuild. This shift marks a turning point from decades of resource dependence to value chain integration, where Canada mines, refines, and exports finished materials under its own control. For industries like clean energy, EV batteries, and AI infrastructure, Canadian copper offers both stability and credibility in an increasingly politicized global market. Each ton of copper pulled from Saskatchewan's bedrock now strengthens Canada's bargaining position ahead of the 2026 USMCA review, proving that resource security can be a stronger shield than any tariff defense.
Washington's 50% import duty on refined copper products was supposed to protect U.S. industry. Instead, it exposed a gap the United States can't fill. Domestic mines supply less than half of U.S. copper demand, forcing manufacturers to import raw concentrates from abroad. As Trump tightened the screws, investors turned north. The McIlvenna Bay mine will ship copper and zinc concentrates to smelters serving Europe and Asia, markets eager for clean copper from a stable democracy. Backed by major investors like Fairfax Financial, Agnico Eagle, and the Canada Growth Fund, the project has become a model of what policy experts call mineral sovereignty. In practical terms, that means Canada controls the resource while attracting foreign capital that once flowed south. Trump's attempt to corner Canada has cornered his own economy instead. U.S. manufacturers now face higher costs, while Canada cashes in on the global shortage his tariffs helped create. From a distance, Saskatchewan looks unchanged: prairie grass, wind, and quiet towns. Yet beneath that calm lies a new industrial heartbeat. The copper mine near Creighton is not just about metal. It represents how Canada adapts when pushed. It brings jobs to northern communities, partners with Indigenous nations like the Peter Ballantine Cree Nation, and powers the transition to cleaner energy with hydro-based electricity. The lesson goes beyond economics. Trump's tariffs were meant to divide, but they reminded Canadians of their shared purpose: to own their resources, to innovate at home, and to never let politics dictate their future. McIlvenna A is no longer just a mining site, it's a blueprint for how smaller economies can stand tall against protectionist superpowers. While Washington's policies grow louder, Canada's response remains steady: invest, innovate, and build. Every tunnel and ton of ore tells the same story. Beneath the prairies,
Canada is building the one thing no tariff can control: independence.